November 8th, 2016. I'll call the Wright County Board meeting to order. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. The minutes of November 1st, 2016.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion we approve the minutes unless there was a correction.
Oh, Mr. Chair, I was just going to mention that Mr. Simon's name is Simonton, not Simonson. Is that correct, Charlie?
That's correct.
Gordy?
Yes.
So on page 5, Gordy Simonton of Stone.
Charlie learned when it was correct in the committee, and Charlie wanted to change it to an S, I think, if I
I
remember
did.
correctly.
I thought I
Yeah,
had
so
learned
you're
it
right,
wrong
Chris. It
all
is
the
Simon
time.
10. So how many times is that in there? Just once, or?
That's the only time I noticed it.
The third paragraph on page 5.
Right.
Simon 10.
I've been calling him Simonson since the beginning, but we found out it's Simonton.
Okay, Charlie, you had a motion then to approve the minutes
And
with that correction?
it's actually Simanton.
Oh, is it?
Simanton.
You sure of that?
Yep, he had sent me a text
Okay.
back. I asked him how to spell his name, so
Anton.
Simonton. Simonton.
Is that a second?
And I will second that motion to
Okay.
approve with that correction.
Yep.
Okay, any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. The agenda. Anything to amend? We got Virgil coming to the podium.
Morning, Commissioner Swatsky, County Board. I would like to petition an item to the consent agenda for referring to the Personnel Committee starting wage for traffic engineer,
Okay.
the November 16th meeting.
So are you looking at something outside that 12% window? Is that what the deal is?
Yes.
Okay. So that would be item I believe, or is that where we'd put that, Sue?
You want to put it under
Item I,
consent?
highway consent, IA, or I1, I guess.
To Personnel Committee.
I1,
Okay.
yep, highway department, and then item to the personnel committee. Sounds good.
With that, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda for today.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Hewsom, second by Commissioner Potter. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. So then we're down to the consent agenda. Any items to remove for further discussion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Delyden, second by Commissioner Hewsom to approve the consent agenda with the one addition. Any further discussion? Not all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Virgil Hawkins, good morning again.
Good morning. I have one item for your consideration. It's to set a date for a road tour to revisit Highway 9 on the east side of Waverly Lake. And some of the dates that are available for our staff are Monday the 14th, Monday the 21st, or the 22nd, or November 23rd.
The 14th, the 21st, or the 23rd of November? Is that what I heard?
21st, 22nd, or 23rd.
Okay, 22nd also.
We're not here for boards.
There's no boards
They
in
let's not
relation
go
to
there.
this. The 14th is open for me if that works.
Yeah, 14th, good for me.
That's Health and Human Service in the afternoon.
In the afternoon, or,
So if we go in the morning, we should be done with this.
yeah, we have Health and Human Services at 1:30.
We want to do it 10 a.m.?
10 o'clock? And then what is that 10 o'clock at
Meet
the,
at the Highway Building at 10 a.m.?
okay, and then I'll just meet you there, of course.
Everybody okay? 10 a.m.
Okay.
at the Highway Building?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to set a committee of the whole road tour visit, County Road 9, east side of Waverly, for November 14th, Monday at 10. Is it 10 or 10:30 you'd like?
10 a.m.
10 a.m.
I'll second.
Motion by Potter, second by Burrell. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Thanks, Virgil.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Alan Wilczek. Good morning, Alan.
Morning, Commissioner Swasky and Board. Here to discuss and award the contract for demolition of the tipping floor at the recycling center. As you know, in July, early July, we had a storm come through and cause some damage to that facility, and have had some discussion about the repair or demolition of that. We went out to bid for the demolition of that, and you have a bid tabulation of the 6 contractors that submitted pricing on that. I'd like to just note that Voss Construction sent me an email to clarify. Originally in the proposal, alternate 1 was included in the base price, but to clarify, alternate 1 was $11,300, so their base price was $40,894. And alternate 1 noted below, that's for the removal. There's a large conveyor coming out of the tipping floor into the processing side, so as to remove that conveyor and build a shelter over it. We've had differing opinions about what to do with that pit, so I had them price it as an alternate so we could make sure that the base price was apples to apples with everybody else. Essentially, the scope of the work, just to give a quick recap, is to take down the building, but there's also some roof work that needs to be flashed in because it's a continuous roof across the structure, as well as the north and south walls that need to be wrapped in the exterior metals. There's a minimal amount of sprinkler system work. A dry system needs to be capped off as it feeds both sides. Electrical demolition, and then all the metal panels, the roof panels, etc. As you can see from the bid pricing that we received on this, Lee, Kelly, and myself opened this in his office. The low bids for the base price were National Demolition and Carlson Construction. Given the nature of the work, the demo portion is pretty cut and dry. That's pretty simple. The part that is a little bit more complicated is the tie-in of the roof and the north and south metal panels. Flashing those in, tying those back, as well as the sprinkler work. And my recommendation, I guess, to move forward and have the best finished product visually, those walls are going to be exposed from the road going through, as well as in the future, whatever happens with that site, if we decide to build a smaller structure or do something different for storage there, that wall is going to be exposed, and want to make sure we have a good finished product that's on there for a long time. I felt that Voss was a little bit better in comfort level, that they do building construction of all types, metal construction type, that they would have a better grasp at doing the finish work. If we're truly looking for demo at a lowest price, then it would be Carlson. He did not price the structure over the pit or the conveyor. He said he didn't price it separately. He said if we remove or just left it there for now to go to the base, he said there's no change in price, because he said the value of that conveyor basically would offset the construction cost of a structure over it. I don't have a good, strong comfort level that those 2 true demo contractors have a really good grasp on the finished materials of that roof and the wall panels and the sprinkler system. They will be bringing in outside contractors, which will work with them and make sure it's done correctly, but just my gut had a better sense of comfort level with Voss at a smaller or at a small increase in price. But I think they can all tear it down fine, and they'll all do fine. I just have a better sense gut that Voss would have a better finished product of the pit enclosure and the roof. But that's my sense of meeting with them and walking through it.
Charles?
Mr. Chair, and I appreciate that, Alan, the comments there. I would have to say, Ward Carlson, I've known him, 30, 40 years. I mean, it goes way back, and he has an excellent reputation. I
Sure.
don't. So I think if he's gonna get a contractor to come in and do the flushing, it wouldn't concern me.
Okay.
I have not, I think he's a guy that stands behind his work, and, like I said, I've known him personally for years, so. And
I don't have
know, Mike, if
experience
you've
with
had
him, so
experience
that,
with- So,
Can you explain, maybe you said it and I didn't understand it, but why did one bid this alternate two and nobody else mention alternate two?
You know, alternate two essentially was, we had a base price to tear it down in the items that I walked you through, and then I threw it out there because everybody had different opinions about what to do with the pit. Some thought you should just fill it in with gravel, some thought you could put a concrete floor over it, some thought enclose it, different opinions. So essentially what I said is, if you have a different idea of what you want to do with it, just put it on the bid form as an alternate to consider something different. So alternate two is just that National Demolition Excavation had the idea that you could fill it with material and then concrete over it. So essentially you wouldn't have, there's 8-foot stem walls that come up on the sides of the conveyor. They'd take those off and just pour concrete across the pit to fill it all flat.
Okay,
So they just had a different idea and they priced it saying, hey, we could do this for you as well.
okay, so there's concrete walls that go right up the side of the conveyor, they go up at an angle like that?
Well, they're actually
Is there-
flat, so the conveyor goes up at an angle, and the concrete walls on the sides of it are about 8 feet up.
Okay.
So they only go up a portion, and the conveyor kind of goes up out of that into the processing side. So the thought is either you take the conveyor out and just put a roof cap over the top of the concrete. There's probably a 12-foot span maybe, just to make the pit watertight. There's a doorway in the pit into the processing side, so if we got water in there, it's going to run into the other side of the facility. So it has to be enclosed one way or the other. We'd either take the conveyor out, close it off.
It could
or-
literally be a tarp for a matter of months.
Sure, it could be. I mean, yeah, I mean,
So, yeah.
theoretically, you could get heavy poly and close it off.
Well, do
Absolutely.
we want to take that conveyor out?
Or you could leave it and build something up the whole thing. I mean, there's an opening where the conveyor goes through, so you're gonna have to close that opening or you're gonna have water
Yeah,
coming
you
in.
could tie that in. I mean, yeah, you could just cap the whole thing with some sheet metal and
You could,
framing.
yeah, you could leave the conveyor there, and the conveyor has some value because of the weight. It's really heavy duty, so there's some value to the scrap even though prices are down. So there's a couple different options or considerations. If we wanted to leave it there for whatever reason, you could build a shelter all the way up. It wouldn't be that much difference in work. So that's why I priced it separately until we get apples to apples and then figure out what the best idea or solution for that conveyor is.
Mr. Chair, Allen, so National Demolition, alternate two is an addition to the total.
Correct, yes. I should clarify that. Base price plus alternate one gives you your total number, and then alternate two was a separate item to consider if we wanted to do concrete on the pit. Personally, I'm not in favor necessarily of the best idea to close off that pit. I think putting a shelter over it is better than filling it with
You're right.
concrete, but
I think for the time being, until the decision's made, exactly what's gonna happen with that.
So when you say that, then you would keep the conveyor in place? Is that what you're saying, Alan?
no, that comment was in reference to if the conveyor comes out, the option to either push over those 8-foot stem walls and concrete the pit over, or to build a shelter or a tarp or whatever we do over that pit. I would not be in favor probably of putting concrete over it right now. I think a tarp or a shelter of some sort would be better. The consideration to leave the conveyor, I don't know that there's much of a cost difference either way. It's just preference if we want to get it out of there and clean up the site, or if we just want to close it off for now. I don't think there's much of a cost difference either way.
Well, and with Carlson, there's no cost difference at all. When it says none there, what it really means is zero, right?
Well,
'Cause
if
he's
you
still
read
gonna do that, he's just not gonna charge.
if you read the note, he does not have a structure in the comments section. He did not price what I asked him to price to put a shelter over. He priced filling it, and the issue with that is they have, the bottom of the pit is concrete. So I expressed to him, well, if we fill it with gravel, or he wants to push the concrete into the pit and just fill it up, well, then the water's gotta go somewhere.
Sure, that's
So
would
he
not be good.
proposed in his pricing that he would put holes in the bottom of the pit floor so that the water could get out. I would not vote for that at all. And he did not price putting a shelter over it like we had talked about in our walkthrough, and it was in the RFP.
But for him, the cost of removing it, that would be zero. Or if you leave it there, it's just the
Exactly.
base price, so.
And that would be whatever we did to build a shelter or what we did over it would be extra on top of that because he didn't price that.
Did National Demolition and Excavating price that
They did, yes.
for putting the
That would be an
cover?
alternate one. 8,500 would be to remove the conveyor and build a, basically a small, it'd be like a 2x6 framed structure over the top of that with metal cap over the pit.
But we can leave the conveyor there and still put the cap over that.
We could, you just have to run that shelter up to the side of the,
But they-
absolutely
they-
could be
They
done.
didn't bid it that way, though, but.
I don't think there's much, it's really not a lot of additional work. It's a very minimal scope to run it up.
Well,
It's not gonna be much different.
I'm wondering why we want to build something around it like that if we're potentially going to be in the spring putting a smaller
Closing
little.
it anyway.
Because to get that, how many thousands of dollars back? 80,000 or what is it that we can get from the insurance if we actually build something?
I think it's about an additional 60.
So to get that $60,000 back, we have to construct something that costs, and how much are we getting back already?
About 60, just shy. I think it's
So-
58-ish.
To get that 60, we have to spend 120, as I would understand it, correct?
About, yes, I'd have
Yeah.
to clarify
And then
with
you'd
Tim,
have
but
a
we got
building.
about
And then we'd
half
have
of
it,
it.
so if we spent $120,000 to put some sort of a building there, it would really only cost us 60 because insurance is gonna give us half of it back.
And
And
then-
if that's there, we don't need to cover over this
No,
because that
because it
would be
would
over
cover
it,
it
so.
already. So maybe
If you just did something
temporary, tarp it, whatever, yeah.
for $50 as opposed to for a couple $1,000s, you'd be saving $19.50.
I'm with you.
That's certainly on the table. Just get
But
rid of
then
the
the
conveyor
question
and
is, do we
close it
want the
off.
conveyor to stay or not? And then who do we choose here, based upon your comments, so.
Yeah.
But-
like-
And what is the advantage of keeping the conveyor there?
Just options in the
Scrap
future.
price.
I don't know, if forever there was some recycling being done where they wanted to input recycling up into the facility maybe?
When's the last time that they
Let's
turned
say you kinda
on?
had a
It's
MRF
just
there
a-
where you have assorted recycling and you actually wanted to bring it in and then have people pick it through, I mean, I suppose you could have,
But
you
is
could
that-
keep some options. I don't think it's likely, but I
Right.
suppose,
That's what I'm wondering with single sort and everything. Things have changed a lot.
Well, it's single sort here, but when they take it
Get
to
out there.
someplace, then it's separated.
Yeah.
yeah.
But do
So
we-
they, a facility like that could possibly, be utilized for that purpose.
Eventually.
That would actually be a good facility for sorting, because if you brought in the kind of recycling where everybody just puts it all in one bin,
Yep.
it would go up that
Conveyor, right. to-
conveyor. If they were in any bags, they would get split open and they get separated into under 8 inches. I think it's 8 or 12. I think it's 8 inches holes. So one line would be under 8, the other would be over 8. So you'd kind of, and then you'd have your picking stations. So theoretically, you could do what they call, I think, a MRF, some site, mixed recycling facility. And
Okay.
I mean, it looks like a MRF right now on the front end of it. But then the back end is where all the stuff is. It's kind of the garbage.
Yeah,
Component
and
of
that's
it,
why
but-
I would just hate to do that because,
Just in case, yeah, I mean, it's there, so,
Mr. Chair, since seems to be confusion on with the conveyor, you're best off just leaving that for now and try to figure out a game plan a little later. 'Cause it's really not hurting anything. It hasn't been hurting anything for a while. There's
no, we tarp it over the winter and,
If the conveyor stays there, it's gonna be a little bit difficult to try to tarp that because you're gonna have a vertical wall with the conveyor meeting that we're gonna have to try to tarp and then fasten that tarp to the vertical wall. If the conveyor's gone, tarping is simple because it's just over the pit. That's really easy, so we'll need to,
It
probably
wouldn't
can be
take
done, we
much
just need
to
to figure that
build
out.
build a 2x4 structure and tarp it to it.
Fasten it back to
We
it
could do
and,
it.
I don't think if a little bit of water got in there, it wouldn't be, because,
Cement.
I mean, the facility was made for garbage, and there's moisture in garbage, so moisture would sometimes get into some of them, like down below the conveyor. I presume there's an area set up down below there. Isn't there some kind of a drain down there already below that conveyor? that it
the
would've-
drain, I'm not sure. There's a pit with a double door you walk into, kind of the mechanical portion of the conveyor. I'm not sure if there's a drain there or not.
I mean, you wouldn't want, thousands of gallons going in there, but if during a rain event you had a few gallons going there, that could be a big deal. So, you don't know who Carlson was proposing relative to the roofs, flashing and that sort of thing.
I don't know a specific
But he wasn't
contractor.
intending to do it himself, apparently.
Right, that's my understanding. He said he knows people that do that, and he would bring somebody in. I don't have the
But
list of
the
subs.
price includes that being
Right.
done.
For the roof and the sidewalls, yes.
Well, we
Not for
could,
closure of the pit.
we could choose him contingent upon us finding that his roofing people or the flashing people were an acceptable contractor.
Okay.
Because we know he's an acceptable demolition person.
Oh, for
He-
sure.
You know, he's done as many as anybody in this area, if not 10 times more than anybody in this area. You know?
Mr. Chair, I'll make that motion, that we go with Carlson contingent on our approval of the construction person that he
Okay,
is.
our Alan's approval
Or
of
Alan's
the-
approval, that's good, yep.
Your approval of the person doing the flashing and
That's-
the,
yep.
whatever that kind of,
And if I may, can I just
Roof.
clarify then what the approach will be with the conveyor? Do we want to leave the conveyor and
Leave the
enclose it with
conveyor
a
and
poly of sorts?
We'll figure out a way to cover it.
Okay,
yep. Yeah, he doesn't have to cover it, we'll cover it then?
I think so.
He has to do this flashing work, but actually
Absolutely.
covering the conveyor will do.
okay.
Right, Charlie?
Yep.
Okay, motion by Burrell.
I'll second that.
Second by Potter, any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, the funding source would be Capital Projects 150.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Thanks, Al.
Thanks, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Items for consideration, Personnel Committee, Commissioner Houston, please.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. The Personnel Committee of the Whole met on November 1st, 2016. Members present, all 5 commissioners, and Coordinator Kelly, others present, Hess, Virgin, Partlow, Riley, Hiram, Mattice, Stevens, Hawkins, Backus, Schreiner, Hoffman, and Asleson. And the discussion was a proposed PTO policy for non-union employees. And our coordinator introduced a proposed PTO policy, has opened the meeting for discussion. Hess answered the questions specifically related to catastrophic sick leave, bereavement leave, compensatory time for exempt employees, and the proposed accrual tables. Staff present during the meeting were given the opportunity to express their concerns and/or support of the proposed policy. Virgin and Kelly also provided support of the proposed policy. Chair Sawatsky asked the full board to determine whether there was consensus to support PTO policy for non-union employees. All commissioners support moving forward with the implementation. However, based on comments and concerns, administration was asked to gather more information to present to the Personnel Committee on November 16th to finalize the details of the PTO policy for non-union employees, which would go into effect January 1st. It would be actually 2017, a correction. And the recommendation referred to Personnel Committee on November 16th, 2016 at 2 p.m. to finalize the details of the PTO policy. And Mr. Chair, with that, I will move the minutes and the recommendation.
Motion by Commissioner Houston, is there a second? Second by Commissioner Delyden. I believe there was a couple more kind of recommendations that were in this relative to the range and the exempt people kind of being more like salaried employees, if I recall. So I assume that's going to be forwarded along with our discussion on
Right.
coming up on Wednesday, so.
Yeah, and if, yeah, we'll make sure that it is.
Any further discussion? And we're scheduled for this Wednesday at 2 or next Wednesday at 2?
Next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday at 2.
At 2 p.m.
Okay. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Thanks, Sonny. Technology Committee, Commissioner Delyden, please.
Technology Committee met on October 25th. Members present were myself, Commissioner Burrell, Adam Tagaro, Todd Hoffman, Sue Virgin, Lee Kelly, Christine Partlow, Brian Allison, Jim Odell, Virgil Hawkins, Mike Olinsky. Others present were Tammy Vaith, Lindsay Meyer, Sherry Nelson, Olga Strobel, Chad Davis, Scott Larson, Connie Mae Cooper, and Jen Rastet. Number of items discussed. RSI was presented by Chad Davis. RSI is a reporting system for the phone systems. and also a management system, allows for quarterly reports along with very detailed reports. And then these reports will be used to define the cost of the systems and for billing purposes and reimbursements. And the RSI upgrade is going to be around $10,000. Recommendation was to proceed with the acquisition of the RSI. Our current system is out of date, so our choices are limited. Email retention was presented by Scott Larson. This was an interesting conversation. The current user email process allows for an unlimited number of years of storage of emails. And the goal is to move to a limit email inbox to 1 year, email archives available for 2 years. Our current email storage is growing 1 to 2 gigabytes per day.
Serious, wow.
So just a little bit.
And that does.
I've
come
been
with-
working to offset that the last month or so.
Oh,
My
have you?
numbers have,
Have
I-
dropped
I've,
out.
I've, I've gotten rid of about 2,500.
Oh,
Oh.
good, good, good.
That's why we're down to 1 to 2 gigs per day.
That cut off a gig.
We're looking at it through the state guidelines, legal standpoints, you know, for how long we need to have record keeping. Keeping them too long can actually expose the county to additional concerns in the future. The plan is to have a phased approach to this change, and then training will be utilized to give employees options for record keeping in different formats. And it was noted that other public entities have limits to their email storage. For example, Anoka County limits to 3 months of email storage, and they utilize shared drives for keeping important information. The recommendation for that was to proceed with plans to apply retention to emails. The CIP project request and project prioritization was kind of discussed in tandem. The projects, you know, for coming forward may utilize CIP dollars. There are currently 130 plus department projects that are on the IT to-do list, and we know that there's more coming in the future. Each department was asked to prioritize their own projects and send back to IT. The majority of the people did do that. That list was brought before the Technology Committee to gather thoughts on how to best prioritize the entire list to meeting the county needs. It was suggested that the list in and of itself cannot be looked at as first priorities being the most important or even the most time-consuming for IT. Items to be considered for determining importance were impact on constituents, impact on employees, revenue generation, cost savings, compliance issues, the number of departments it affected, length of time project has been in limbo, and available IT resources to give to projects. It was stated that each department will naturally tend to have the opinion that their project is the most important, and looking at a wider list of considerations will allow each department to compare how their project sits in relation to others. This was information only, and there's one number that's not on here that was discussed. And the county currently has 236 approximately software programs that we are currently using. So they have, for the most part, gotten that list complete. It's being detailed to try and figure out what those softwares do so that going forward will eliminate duplications. Some of those softwares are required by state statute, or we have to deal with them because we got to deal with them in the state. Some are, you know, utilized for a department only, such as the Zerker systems for the sheriffs, where, you know, a system like that is necessary. But then again, that Zerker system is tying into court services and attorney's office. So it's not just one department, it's working them together. But the idea to get this list down was to know what we have so that when somebody says, I need a software to do this thing, we can look and see what we currently own and what it utilizes, and possibly utilize that for that purpose. Or if there's something better, we have something we can eliminate in the future. So that was a very difficult task for IT. I commend them for getting it done. I commend those department heads that worked with them. Disappointed that some of the department heads did not do those sort of things. But anyway, we're getting it better organized to figure out how to proceed in the future with our IT things. So with that, I'll make a motion to approve it. Did I miss anything, Charlie?
You did good. I second that.
Okay,
Even
so we
got
had a
extra
motion by
credit there at
Commissioner
the
Delight and a second by Commissioner Burrell.
It even got extra credit at the end.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, just one thing, the 236 different programs was an eye-opener I walked into when they were analyzing that. That was, I didn't think we had anywhere near that many programs sitting out there. So that was a lot of work to just uncover and discover all that.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Ditch 31 update. Who's taking this? Mr. Kreiser, come on down.
Lay down or come on up?
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, members of the
Step
board,
forward.
does everyone, good, you do have the resolution, thank you. Our office, as you know, I think it was last Tuesday, we met in closed session to discuss ditch 31, and the offer presented to us from the Department of Natural Resources. This resolution, staff is recommending that you pass. It outlines what the offer was from the DNR and what our proposal back to them will be.
And this is basically kind of summarizes what we talked
Yes,
about
it
at
does.
closed session.
Yes,
so.
and the proposal we're making back are paragraphs 1 and 2 on the bottom.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we bring forth the resolution for approval.
I'll second it.
Motion by Burrell, second by Delight. Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Commissioner Burrell.
Aye.
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 Resolution carries unanimous.
And hopefully we get some resolution to this because
Yeah.
the ditch people out there need it.
Yes, they do. And I have to say, I think this is the world record for shortest discussion on a ditch before the county board.
No discussion means, yeah,
Yes.
really short.
Go.
I'm going to try to teach Bob how to make it shorter next
Okay.
time.
Mr. Chair, Greg, before you leave, I understand that there is a possibility somewhere hiding that we do maybe have some as-built or.
We are looking for
design?
them. I talked with Janice. She indicated she went through the records before. And there are some plans that are not marked. We're going to go back through those plans that aren't marked and see if those correlate to ditch 31.
Well, we,
Yeah.
So it's, okay,
Oh.
so. Right, so there are a number of plans out there, so we just need to kind of try and figure out whether, if we need to get Houston Engineering or somebody in here to help us.
Yep.
They should have a good idea.
Yeah. We'll go through as soon as the absentee ballots are counted, we can get back to looking at different things in the vault, in the auditor's office. So,
yeah, in response to Mark's question, Kerry Saxton was under the impression that he believed that there is a set of plans out there somewhere.
yes, he did indicate that. He thought it was in one of the rolled up documents that we have upstairs, so we'll go
Well,
through
I
those
don't know
again.
if he's seen them somewhere along the line, and that's why he believes they exist, or somebody told him they exist, but, and again, I mean, he could have mixed it up with another ditch also, but
Yeah.
he seems to think that that there was a set out there, that he either had seen them or was made aware that there was a set or something like that, so.
And I would suggest another place to look is Bob's office, because I've seen Bob's office, and there is a possibility they're in there somewhere
It
too.
could be, yeah. All right, thank you, board.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Schedule committee of the whole meeting, strategic planning. This will be our third swing at this meeting here.
Yeah.
Notice how Lee didn't show up today to try and do this. He figures he's the jinx of it.
Sue can take care of it, right?
He's suggesting the 29th at 10:30. I think I've seen somewhere.
It's on the page. Mr. Chair, we had a discussion on this the last time because on that particular day, 2 in the afternoon, Commissioner Houston has crime lab, 4 o'clock, Commissioner Burrow and I have extension, and we have truth and taxation at night, so I think 10:30 was one.
Pretty busy day
That was the
already.
one time.
The one time we all agreed that we could make it. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to set a committee of the whole meeting for November 29th at 10:30 a.m.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Potter, second by Commissioner Houston. Any further discussion? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Advisory Committee, Advisory Board updates, Commissioner Burrell.
Did meet last Wednesday with the Crow, not a whole lot there, but we also followed that up with the One Watershed, One Plan. And the big talk is about the governance, and I think maybe what we'll probably end up doing at some point in the next maybe month or so is to have a committee of the whole and maybe bring Tom down. He's a consultant with the Crow over the One Watershed, One Plan. I'd like to include the whole board in it. It's a lot of detail, but it's how we set this up and what's going to be fair. There's just a lot of things that we need to look at. So I think for right now, just that we're working on the governance end of it, and so it's a lot. You think doing the solar or doing the feedlot amendment thing was difficult. This is, when it gets into the nitty gritty, it really everybody starts digging in a little bit, and I have to know where we think we should be at it. We probably have the biggest stake of any county in this One Watershed, One Plan on the North Fork of the Crow, Wright County, as far as landmass, and I think followed by probably Meeker. We have some counties up at the end, Pope County, that is just a little sliver, but they are represented. So, and then how we include, there's 2 watershed districts up there. Do they get extra representation or not? So there's just a lot of things that I'd like to go over with the board. And so for right now, I'll just leave it at that we talked about it. And then the other thing on last Thursday at the Highway 12 Safety Coalition that meets in Delano, they did talk about the cement barrier on what they call the Super 2. It's that new 2-lane road that bypasses Long Lake. They put a cement medium in now. The road was closed actually for a couple of weeks for them to do that. And they said within 2 hours of opening the road, somebody had a medical and they were coming down the bypass. They were running into the barrier, I guess, and could have easily gone across and been another head-on collision. And they were able to get the car stopped and get the person off to the ambulance. And they had whatever the medical thing was. They said it's a very, very small chance of them surviving, but they actually were able to save them. And it was like some type of a aneurysm or something like that. So it could have been a whole lot serious. So
Yeah.
they claim the thing already possibly saved them
lives.
Saved.
within just an hour or two. So
Oh, probably saved more than one life.
that was it.
Mark?
Bertram Lake met last last Friday, and I'll let you talk about that since you're so good at it, and you're limited here on how many more times you're gonna get a chance to talk about those things.
Other
yeah,
than
that got
that, or-
nothing, yeah.
Well, you didn't bring those pictures in, did you? But maybe everybody's seen them back there. There was
Everybody's seen them except for Charlie.
pictures of the building. We're closing on the final purchases on December 1st at 8:30 a.m. somewhere here in Buffalo. So if anybody would like to be at that kind of momentous event on 8:30 a.m., just need to find out from,
Well, one was at 8:30 and the other one was at 9.
I think closing is at Central Land.
okay. So yeah, we've got, one is for that little pie-shaped piece of property that we purchased from the Lamb family, and then the other is for the final 41 acres that we purchased from the YMCA. So at 8:30 on that day is going to be the final closing, and then everything will have been acquired. So in the meantime, the chalet is coming along nicely.
Yep, it's looking really nice. Could be
There's-
very impressive, it'll be available for rentals in the future. The Bertram Lake Advisory Committee will be meeting out there in the future. But yeah, it's gonna look like it's always been there.
Yeah.
Like it's,
So if you haven't seen the pictures, there's some pictures back there. Probably some work being done on some of the road stuff right now, since the kids are done with camp, so some of that.
yeah, a little
bit
bit
of
of
heavy
that
equipment out
issues and
there.
also a little bit of the rain's kind of been causing some issues with the road or with the parking lots and the roads out there.
But things are coming along real nicely. I don't know, Mark and his folks just continue to do a good job out there. Some of it they're doing, others have some partnerships with the city, of course. City's kind of been working on their ball fields. I think they pretty much completed their first phase of what they had to do just to make some of the ball field area ready for play to meet the satisfaction of the grant. They had like a 3-year window, I think it was, to get some space out there available. So there's been some seeding going on out there. I don't know, Tom, what is it, maybe about 40 acres or something like that have been seeded?
Might be more than that.
And so next spring, they'll be able to play. There isn't going to be anything, I don't think, specific out there. There's going to be like open space, so the soccer association can come out and put a goal on each end, and if they want to paint lines, they'll do that. Now it's pretty much flat, open area that you can go out and play lacrosse on, or play soccer on, or youth football could play something like that.
As soon as the grass is growing.
Well, you know, like I said, I think that'll probably, but by summer, that should be
I sure hope-
established,
I hope
because
so, yeah.
I assume it's already been seeded.
Yeah.
So it should take off big time in the spring, so that's kind of been done, and the city's just in the process of wrapping up their master plan of that whole athletic complex, and that's probably coming before, well, in fact, it might even be coming before us, just because we're half owner of that property, just to give it I think it might be coming before our Parks Commission, and maybe here too, just saying that, we're okay with what the city plans on doing with it.
Yeah,
Even
they're
though
going to
it's
the Parks
The
Commission next
city's
week.
thing, and they're the ones spending the money on it, so, yeah, a lot going on out there with the Bertram Park, and things seem to be going very well, so.
Actually, just on that note, Monticello cross-country team had their meet out there.
Yeah, they had a big meet out there. I think we actually mentioned that in this meeting
Did
a
we
few
mention
weeks
it
ago.
already?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so. And, there's just been request after request for activities, and one thing the Bertram Advisory Board talked about here a couple months ago is that, we're probably gonna have to start putting our foot down on some of these things, because if every weekend there's an activity out there, then the public can't go out and use the trails, because
Yeah.
if every weekend you've got a race, a 5K, a marathon, of this or that, then people just want to go out and walk the trails and bike the trails, don't have a chance, because there's always something going on out there. So we've had a discussion about, we need to start limiting the number of events out there. And we've already got some things that are going to be annual events. We can't have 52 annual events out there. Because a couple people actually on the advisory committee had commented that they had went out there with their family to go walking, and they got there, and wow, there was cars everywhere, because there was like the Bertram Blast, which was the
Triathlon.
the triathlon thing and that sort of thing, and that kind of, brought up this mindset of, we need to be a little bit careful about,
Right.
overrunning the park with activities that the average citizen just can't come out and use it too. So,
Yep.
that's all.
I have nothing this week, Mr. Chair.
Just a couple things. I went to the Buffalo Safe Schools meeting last Wednesday, and they are having good results with the start times for the older kids starting later. There's been fewer unexcused absences, and they're going to be doing a more formal study and get the information, so that's encouraging. There's a Coping with Teenage Years seminar at the Health and Human Service Building today from 11:30 to 1, if anyone's interested in going. And a lot of coping to do with teenagers sometimes. I was invited to the Annandale City Council meeting last night by the Lake Sylvia Association. They did a presentation on the starry stonewort, and it really is, that starry stonewort is very scary. I mean, we hear about zebra mussels and Eurasian milfoil and that kind of thing, but kind of like there's ways to treat those. But starry stonewort, they have not found an effective treatment. It's been in the United States for about 30 years. But Lake Coronis in Paynesville was the first lake in Minnesota to get it. It's been, it was brought over on ships basically from Europe. And so it's been in Michigan for 30 years, but found its way to Minnesota. Lake Coronis last year was, before it came, it was, it's been this wonderful recreational lake, and now it's a 3,000 acre lake, and they got funding to treat like about 250 acres of that, but they went out like 150 feet and 500 to 600 feet. They removed 400,000 pounds of this stuff. I mean, you can walk on it. It'll go, there's no roots. It'll go down like 19 feet. And like Mr. Barkley, who did the presentation last night, I didn't quite have a clear picture of how, the different cells or whatever of this thing work. But what it is, it's like, your joints, this will be, this plant will be, it's actually it's an algae, but it's like a super algae, or it's like weed. So it goes like, this segment is separate from the segment underneath it. So in other words, if you treat it chemically, it'll kill the top one, but not go down. And so if it breaks off, it's got all these, separate units. So I was kind of thinking it went out, and then this, this guy was separate from this guy, but no, it's...
it is very intense.
It's all these little joints going down, and they can't take their boats through it. It kills fish. The water turns yellow, and now it's in Wright County. Lake Sylvia has it, and so it's one of the ways that it's transported is, or one of the main ways really is, it gets on these bunk trailers, and especially the carpeting, you can't really see it. And if people go in through these decontamination sites, which we have one in Annandale, that will take care of it. It's high pressure, hot water, and it takes like between 5 and 20 minutes to decontaminate these boats and these trailers. But a lot of people do not go there afterwards. So, like for instance, Sylvia's, pretty high recreational lake, but not like, say, Clearwater. Sylvia has maybe 3,000 boats going in there per day, and, well, I shouldn't say per day, 3,000 boats, and Lake...
I believe 3,000 was the amount that were inspected this year.
Hmm?
I said that 3,000, I believe, was the amount that was inspected, that went in and out, that actually had inspections. You're right, it's not per day. And Clearwater has about 5,000, so they just, I mean, it's in Mille Lacs, it's in Red Lake. They're trying to, like Coronis is trying to harvest it, so they've got this harvester that goes and kind of collects this stuff, and these dumpsters sitting there. It's just, it's sad, it's really sad. So they have got divers that'll go in and pull it out also, but working with the University of Minnesota, they just have not found anything that kills this stuff yet. So, But Lake Sylvian is kind of lucky because it's confined to one particular area.
Right.
So they're going to divide that area, and they're going to go in and vacuum it out.
And
they're doing something different there.
Right, and the divers, they'll have divers also, but it grows over the winter, so it's not something that gets killed in freezing water. So anyway, we have, the DNR would not close down. They had to jump through a lot of hoops to get their access closed, and that delayed things a lot. So I'm sure that this is going to be coming up before the county. They've got some monies, but we'll see what all happens. But it would be it would be good for everyone to see this presentation because I'm not an alarmist when it comes to this kind of stuff, but this is, this is something that's pretty alarming.
You know, it's disappointing. The DNR is supposed to be protecting our lakes.
Right,
And as bad as this stuff is, and we know that it's contained in just one particular area,
right,
why would you take the risk of allowing
I know.
that area to stay open where you have the opportunity to actually, in a controlled area,
Right.
to try and eliminate it?
The
You know,
county,
instead of letting it,
I know.
I don't understand
I
that.
don't either, and the county has 11 accesses, but the DNR has far more. So, you know, that's something that may come before us that we may need to make a decision about, or cities may, or whatever, just to get control of this, so it doesn't come in, but, yeah, I mean, it's pretty much, if that would just take over a lake, it pretty much just turns it into a swamp. I mean,
Yeah.
because there's no fish that can live there. You can't boat, they can't swim. That also is a good host for blue-green algae, which kills animals if they drink the stuff, and it's harmful for children. So it's just overall a bad thing.
And you're not being an alarmist talking.
I'm not being an alarmist, I'm just being realistic here.
You know, if they really think that there's any chance at all of stopping it, the best thing they could do is just totally ban any surface use of the lake at all until such time that those
They could get-
procedures have been implemented, because
Yep,
even if boats come in from other parts of the lake, there's a chance they're gonna go in and move this somewhere else. Boats on the lake could move it around, so if you
Mm-hmm. yeah.
actually thought you could stop it, that you thought there was a reasonable chance,
yep,
why not tell everybody there is no lake usage until, you know, spring of next year or something like
Right.
that? Implement these plans and see if you can do it, because anything else is just gonna reduce your likelihood of success, I would think.
You know, and Sylvia's been they've been very diligent with their monitors, you know, inspecting boats before they go onto the lake, or, so it hasn't been that they've been lackadaisical about this. They've been concerned about other invasive species in the last few years, so they got really blindsided, and they want other people to be aware of it, the cities, so they aren't blindsided.
Well, they're one of the few lakes in the county, I think, that have actually, the people that live on the lake have spent some money to pay to have
Yes, they have.
inspectors at the,
I think
at the landings.
They've
and-
got about 80,000, I think, right now, that, to help attack this, but, yeah. But Lake Coronas, they got $800,000 for the next 3 years to try to get this under control. That's
And
all.
they can't control it.
No, and
Well, they
that's-
never will. Everything you do, literally a year or two later, is deemed useless.
Oh, it.
I would, based on what I'm hearing.
If you go online and look at Lake Cronus,
I know, it's awful.
scary.
It looks like sewage has been dumped, and it's really, I guess it's really stinky too, so it's,
But yeah, you know, you could talk about walking on it, you could walk on it, but
could
then
walk
if
on
you
it.
could fall through, you'd
Never
get
be
all
seen
tied
again.
up
I know,
from that algae.
Yeah.
It's really nasty.
yeah.
Now, do they still have public access on Lake Coronas? Ours,
I
ours all.
believe so.
Why?
Well, you can't, because you can't get through there anyway, so I mean, it doesn't,
Well, they cut channels through.
they have done cutters, they've gone through and cut, so you can actually
Yeah,
move through,
And
I
then
mean.
any boat that comes off there, just one cell
Yep.
of that
Yeah.
algae, just one cell is
Right.
enough to contaminate.
Why would you allow boats on that lake?
Why would you want to?
Unless you actually lived on the lake, and that's the only place that boat went.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Nobody should be able to take a boat off that lake at a public access,
yeah,
because you're just,
Somewhere else.
and then if, unless there's some procedure by which they can take it to an official site and literally
Clean it.
get an intensive cleaning.
Oh, yeah.
there was very few people that went through the decontamination after they came off these lakes. So you're on a lake that you know has zebra mussels, but they haven't gone through the decontamination, which is kind of puzzling too. And people that fish, they go from lake to lake to lake, and eventually they're gonna pick up something, they're gonna drop it in another lake, so.
Well, I don't think Lake Coronis will be an issue too much longer because there'll be no reason for anybody to go on that lake.
Yeah.
There'll be
PG
no,
classified, it won't be a lake anymore.
Right.
there'll be no fish and you won't be able to move
Right.
a boat around.
Yeah.
Canoe. But
I
yeah,
don't know if you can get through a canoe,
you should be able to.
can you?
With a push pole or something.
Yeah. So anyway,
So
Not
thanks
to-
for,
not-
thanks for not being alarmist.
That's right.
sorry,
not
sorry to
even a
be,
re-election year
sorry to
for
be the
you.
downer of the day, but, you know, but it is good to be educated about this.
Yeah,
because
it is scary.
When I was first talking to Mr. Barkley and Mr. Fortner on, Sylvia a couple weeks ago, getting quite the education about it, and then seeing the presentation last night made me
Yep.
even more committed to, yes, we need to do something, whatever we can.
Well, I would think if you had somewhere to go with the water, now that's easier said than done, but if you could
Right.
pump all that water out of there,
I've thought of that.
dry
too.
that thing down,
Yep.
let everything die,
Yep,
and then you'd have to somehow rebuild it back up.
Yeah.
I mean, it would cost millions because
it
of
would.
having to, plant native vegetation and those sorts of things,
Might
but
not work though, because they said when they take this stuff out, it dries up and everything, and they put it back in water, it comes right back to life.
So you'd have to
Take
you'd
it
have
out
to
and
pump
burn
it somewhere where you can, and I asked, what do you do with all the stuff that you harvest?
try to burn it on the surface
And
if it was dry or
They,
Or use it
their,
for fertilizers.
their best option is to put it
compost.
in a landfill that they cover, so it cannot see the light of day again. So they put it in plastic bags, but I think they're hauling stuff up to, they say somewhere in Bemidji right now, but,
Well, you could put it in rows and turn it, and when it composted, it would get very hot on the inside, and that would have to kill it.
yeah, as long as it doesn't but it can't be, you don't want it composted so that people, you can't put it like out in the compost places where people come and get that stuff and put it on their yards, I wouldn't think.
Well, I would think if it,
Once it's broke down.
it would.
If it broke down,
turned
yeah.
like, it would turn
Yeah.
like the dirt, and like I say,
Yeah.
there shouldn't be any, it's like weeds, if weeds are in compost and there's seeds in there, like it's hot enough and it kills all that, and in the end,
Well,
you know.
when we got compost one time, we did have some different weeds that came out of that dirt, but,
Well,
maybe.
then again, like I say, if
So we
it,
didn't have before, let me put it that way.
I think in part it depending on the process, like
It's
when
gotta
we,
get hot enough.
when we run the facility out at the county, I can't remember what that was getting to, if it was like 185 degrees on the inside or something, would that sound right?
You gotta
Or
get something hot enough for that.
But,
it's,
but this particular stuff does not grow on ground. If you spread it out in a farmer's field, it ain't gonna do any damage there,
As long as it's up.
as long as
If it
it don't
doesn't-
run into a lake or a
It might get into a lake,
I
yeah,
suppose, yeah.
yeah.
But there's gotta be a point where if you compost it, it breaks down to the point that there's no longer anything growing on it, and again, that heats up and,
It's nasty stuff, whatever.
It is.
okay, well, thanks for all the good news, Chris.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Anything else come before the board? I don't think we need to remind people to vote, because if someone's watching this at home, they're probably concerned enough about government that they're already gonna vote, so we don't have to remind them, so.
But thank everyone who gets out there and votes.
Yeah,
and
hopefully
has
a lot
voted.
of people in Wright County will vote, because we have smart voters in Wright County, so we need them
We do
to,
have good voter turnout in Wright County.
we need them to vote, and
Yep.
They live in the right county, so obviously they're in their right minds.
maybe they can offset some of the votes that come in other parts of the state where they don't quite get it as right.
Right.
And that's WRIGHT and RIGHT both.
Absolutely.
Any further discussion? There being none, we are adjourned at 10 a.m.